Hello. Um, First off, please forgive the lousy production values, as I have not done this before, and the my space up here is not super conducive to good lighting and such, but I will do the best I can. Um, Also, I don't think there's any way I can do this in one take. I will attempt to record it in blocks and splice them together, but I I don't know how that will work, but I'm sure it'll be fine. Anyway, I am here to talk about the changes in the continent of Africa between 1885 and 1920. Obviously, a lot was happening geopolitically, particularly the First World War, but there was a lot of action even before that, and I will run down the highlights of the map. Let's see. Um, Italy became very active in colonization. They founded colonies of Eritrea and Italian Somaliland, both on the east coast on the Horn. Um, Additionally, they took Libya from the Ottoman Turks. And let's see, what else do we have? Um, Obviously, in the south, there was a lot going on with the Boers and the English. The English were ultimately successful in the Boer Wars, and as a result of that, the Orange Free State and the Transvaal both became British colonies. Later, when South Africa became a nation, both of those territories became part of South Africa. Uh, German Cameroon was created. France was in control of it, and then it became a German possession. This was right before the war. And then during the war, all the powers in Europe were busy killing each other, and there was no major exchanges of land or border movements during that time. But after the war, as a result of the Treaty of Versailles, uh, the League of Nations, actually, I'm not sure if it was League of Nations at that point, but as a result of the treaty, Germans were forced to give up all their possessions in Africa, which resulted in a second scramble, if you will, to divide up the plunder, so to speak. Um, in the east, Germany's major possession was Tanganyika, which was divided several ways. Um, let's see. Part of it became British. Part of it went to Belgium. The Rwanda and Burundi went to Belgium. Um, a small chunk, the Kianga Triangle, went to Portugal. Uh, and then in the south, Namibia, which was a German possession, became a part of the South African Republic. And I'm not sure if I mentioned, um, in South Africa in 1910, by decree of the Crown, it was made sort of a limited republic. After the second land grab after World War I, there were a few minor border squabbles that were settled between the French and the Italians, cementing the borders of Libya and Algeria and also Chad. Um, Overall, not a lot had changed. If you look at the continent as a whole, the French still were in control of most of West Africa, and the English still largely had control in the east. Um, and then the north was mostly divided between the French and the Italians. And I think at some point in there, Morocco, its borders are settled as well. So, what did this mean for the people of Africa? Well, the most important thing was many African soldiers fought in the war, and when they came home, they realized they had been made empty promises by the colonial powers that they needed to give a reason to fight for them, and they offered them land and jobs and money, and did not uh, go through on any of those things. And this is what really planted the seeds of what would become the various independence movements on the continent. It is also worth mentioning here that as before the war, there were still only two independent entities on the entire continent, and that is Liberia and Ethiopia, despite the best efforts of anyone who tried to invade them. So, in conclusion, while if you look at the map of Africa in 1920, it doesn't look that much different than it did in 1885 after the original. Sorry, that's my cat. She's loud. Uh, but what's important to realize is that when the soldiers came home from war, they were unhappy. Not that they were, I mean, it varied from colony to colony, but I don't think anyone enjoys being subjugated, even if maybe you had some, advantages that you didn't have before. People naturally, I think, want to be free. And while this has still not occurred by 1920, and there would still be there would still be a long way to go to get there. Definitely the seeds of future efforts to decolonize were there. Okay, thanks.